I stood in the doorway of our living room, watching my wife carefully stack boxes on the floor. Her name was Laura, and for 23 years, she was the center of my world. She hummed softly, almost cheerfully, like she was preparing for a yard sale instead of abandoning our marriage. My throat burned as I tried to form words, but all that came out were shallow breaths. Laura wasn't packing for a trip. She was packing to leave me. And worse, she was leaving me for someone else. I felt a mixture of disbelief and rage twist inside my chest. Part of me wanted to hate her for the betrayal, for the way she looked through me as if I didn't exist anymore. But another part of me hated myself even more, for standing there powerless, for crying quietly instead of shouting, for crumbling like a child. Maybe a stronger man would have reacted differently. Maybe the man she was running to, Daniel Hayes, would have stood tall and proud in this moment. But Daniel wasn't the one being left behind. He was the one she had chosen. I replayed the past months in my mind, searching for the signs I had missed. It started about 6 months ago when Daniel was hired as a consultant for Laura's company. He was supposed to streamline operations, cut costs, and polish the company's image. Everyone said he was charming, brilliant, and effective. But behind that charm was a predator. And my wife, the woman who once swore she couldn't imagine a life without me, fell right into his arms. Before he arrived, Laura never gave me a reason to doubt her loyalty. She used to tease me whenever I glanced too long at another woman in public. She would grab my arm, smile, and say, "Don't forget who you belong to." For years, I believed her. But Daniel Hayes managed to break that bond in a matter of weeks. He convinced her she deserved something better, something more exciting than the man who had built a life with her. This morning I had made dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant. I thought I was going to surprise her after work with a romantic evening. Instead, she called me after lunch and asked me to come home immediately. Her voice was calm, unnaturally calm, and it terrified me. When I walked into the house, she was sitting on the couch with her hands folded neatly in her lap. The first thought in my head was that something had happened to our children. We have 2 kids, Rachel, a nurse in Chicago, and David, who serves in the military out in Colorado. I rushed to sit beside her and asked, "Are the kids okay?" She nodded. "They're fine. This is about you and me." I froze, not understanding. "What do you mean?" Her lips trembled for a moment, and then the words came like bullets. "I've fallen in love with someone else. His name is Daniel Hayes. I'm leaving with him today." I can't explain the feeling of hearing those words. It was like my soul had been ripped straight out of me. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to say it was a cruel joke. But Laura wasn't joking. Her face was calm, almost serene, as if she was announcing she had taken up a new hobby. And in that moment, I realized she had already left me emotionally long before today. I had met Daniel once, briefly. Laura's car was in the shop, and I picked her up from work. He was in the lobby, surrounded by people who seemed captivated by him. I noticed the designer suit, the flashy watch, and the smug smile. He carried himself like the world owed him everything. And I knew instantly he was trouble. Never in my worst nightmares did I believe Laura would fall for a man like him. But she did. She told me she felt an instant connection, something that grew stronger with every day they worked together. She said she was sorry, that I had been a good husband, but she needed to start a new chapter. Her words stabbed deeper than any knife. I begged her to reconsider, but her eyes were cold, empty, unrecognizable. She looked at me with a mix of annoyance and pity. The look of love I once knew, the sparkle that carried me through my darkest days, was gone. In its place was a stranger's gaze. She whispered, "Please understand, Mark. Try to be happy for me." "Happy?" For her? I could feel my fists clench as my body shook with anger. Are you out of your mind, Laura? I shouted, unable to control my voice. You don't even know this man. You're throwing away our life, our family, everything we built together. For what? For some fantasy? Her expression didn't change. She just went back to sealing the lid on another storage box. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her, to force her to see reason, but she wouldn't even look at me. I watched as she struggled to lift the boxes and place them on a hand truck. Every movement of hers was a dagger in my chest. She maneuvered the boxes to the front door, and I followed her like a ghost. In the back of her SUV were 2 large suitcases. Her clothes, her new life. I realized then there was nothing I could say to stop her. The woman I loved more than life had already vanished. She turned to me and spoke in a detached, business-like tone. You'll keep the house, both cars. I've told my lawyer not to pursue alimony. All I want is half of our savings. Her words were so clinical, so rehearsed. It was like she was reading from a script. $68,000. That's what she wanted in exchange for 23 years of marriage. My stomach twisted as if I'd been punched. It felt like she was offering me a consolation prize for losing the biggest game of my life. When she got into her SUV, she paused and lowered the window. Mark, I'll send someone to pick up my car later. You can keep it or give it to the kids. I won't need it where I'm going. She rolled the window back up and started the engine and drove away without looking back. I stood in the driveway, unable to move. My knees buckled and I collapsed to the ground, sobbing in front of neighbors who now knew my secret shame. The woman I loved more than life itself had just left me for another man. I don't remember how long I lay there. Eventually, a couple of neighbors helped me inside, but nothing could help me process what had just happened. For hours, I sat in silence, staring at the empty space she left behind. The sound of her humming still echoed in my ears, and I knew, with a crushing certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again.
The hours after Laura drove away blurred into a fog. I barely remember who came to check on me, who whispered words of pity, who avoided my eyes. What I do remember is the emptiness that settled over me like a heavy blanket. The silence in the house was unbearable. Every corner carried her presence, every detail reminded me of her. The curtains she picked out, the couch she insisted on, even the smell of her perfume lingering in the hallway. It was all poison now. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, the one she used to save only for me. Now it belonged to someone else. Days passed, though I barely noticed. Friends called, my sister stopped by, even my boss reached out, but I couldn't face anyone. I stayed inside, shutting out the world. Eventually, I called my best friend from high school, Michael. He had become a lawyer, and he was the one person I trusted to guide me through the wreckage. When I told him what happened, he didn't sound shocked. Instead, he sighed heavily, as if he'd seen this story play out too many times. He promised to handle the divorce paperwork and make sure Laura's lawyer didn't try anything shady. At least I had that small piece of reassurance. The weeks that followed felt like drowning. I barely ate, losing weight so quickly my clothes started to hang off me. I avoided mirrors because I couldn't stand the hollow-eyed stranger staring back. Rachel called me every night, her voice full of worry. David sent emails from his base promising to come home if I needed him. But I told them both to stay strong, to focus on their lives. Laura never reached out to them, not once. The thought enraged me more than her betrayal of me. How could a mother cut ties with her own children so easily? It was as if Daniel had erased not only our marriage, but her entire past. That realization hardened me in ways I didn't expect. One night, after a particularly brutal wave of loneliness, I snapped. I went into the master bathroom, the one Laura had obsessed over renovating, and stared at myself in the mirror. The man looking back wasn't me. He was pale, ragged, almost broken. A sudden fury surged through me, and before I could stop myself, I punched the glass. It shattered, slicing into my knuckles, blood spilling into the sink. The pain jolted me awake in a way nothing else had. I ended up in the ER with stitches, but strangely, I felt lighter afterward, like I had finally expelled some of the poison Laura left inside me. The next day, I cleaned myself up, shaved the beard I had let grow wild, and went to Michael's office. We signed the final divorce papers in silence, and just like that, 23 years of marriage ended with the scratch of a pen. "You came out better than most," Michael said, trying to comfort me. "She only took the savings. You kept the house, the cars. That's rare." I nodded, but didn't respond. Material things didn't matter. I had lost the only thing that gave my life meaning, and no amount of property or money could fill that void. Walking back into the house after the divorce was finalized felt like stepping into a mausoleum. Every picture frame, every piece of furniture, every wall screamed her name. I couldn't stand it anymore. A week later, I called a second-hand furniture dealer. He brought a truck and bought almost everything I owned. I didn't care about the price. I just wanted her ghost gone. When the dealer left, the house looked like a hollow shell. There was only my bed, a recliner, the television, and the kitchen basics. The echoes of my footsteps made the emptiness unbearable. I realized I couldn't live there any longer. The next morning, I called a realtor. Within weeks, the house was on the market. I found a smaller place across town, a modest 2-bedroom home with a small patio. It wasn't much, but it was mine. When I signed the papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: relief. The large house, the one Laura adored, now belonged to a young family with 3 children. I saw their faces light up as they walked through it, their laughter filling the rooms. For the first time, I felt a flicker of joy. 4 months passed. I adjusted to my new life slowly, one day at a time. I cooked simple meals, went back to work, tried to reclaim some routine. Rachel and David stayed in close touch, both furious at their mother for cutting them off. It hurt them deeply, but they stood by me. That loyalty gave me the strength to keep going. Around the 6-month mark, I got a strange call. It came from an unfamiliar number with a California area code. I let it ring and ignored it. Later, curiosity got the better of me, and I looked it up. Sacramento. I laughed bitterly, guessing it might have been Laura. Weeks later, my suspicion was confirmed when Laura's sister Karen called. She asked if Laura had tried contacting me. Apparently, Laura had been reaching out to family, desperate to get through. I told Karen the truth. I had no interest in speaking with my ex-wife. She made her choice. She can deal with the consequences. She didn't argue. She just hung up. But the thought lingered in my mind. Something must have gone wrong between Laura and Daniel. The man she left everything for had probably shown his true colors. If so, she was learning the hard way what betrayal feels like. Still, I didn't reach out. She was no longer my problem. Then came the call that shattered the fragile balance I had built. It was late afternoon, and I was at the office when my desk phone rang. I picked it up absent-mindedly, expecting a client. "Hello, Mr. Whitman?" a female voice said. "This is Dr. Harris from Sacramento General Hospital. We need to inform you about a patient, Laura Whitman." My blood turned to ice. The doctor explained that Laura had been in a car accident. She had been unconscious for weeks and only recently woken up. Her driver's license still listed me as her emergency contact. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "She should have changed that," I muttered. "We've been divorced for months." The doctor paused and then added something that made my stomach twist. "We contacted Daniel Hayes," she said softly. but he denied any responsibility. He said he wasn't in a committed relationship with her. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Of course he did. The man who stole my wife had thrown her away like trash, exactly the way he probably planned from the start. The doctor explained Laura had no money and no insurance. She was asking for me. For me. The man she had discarded as if I were nothing. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or hang up the phone. Instead, I heard myself saying something that shocked even me. "I'll be on the next flight," I told the doctor. The words came out automatically, like they belonged to someone else. Why was I agreeing to this? Why was I stepping back into her disaster? I couldn't answer those questions. All I knew was that after everything she had done, Laura was calling my name again.
The flight to Sacramento was a blur. I sat in my seat, staring out the window, my mind racing with memories I had tried so hard to bury. Part of me wanted to turn the plane around, to never see her face again. But another part of me needed closure. I needed to look into her eyes and understand why she had done what she did. And maybe, deep down, I wanted her to see what she had lost. When I arrived at the hospital, the nurse led me down a long corridor. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, cold and sterile. At the end of the hall was a private room with the door slightly open. I stepped inside, and there she was, Laura, my ex-wife. She looked nothing like the woman who left me. Her hair was thin and messy, her face pale, her eyes hollow. She was thinner, almost frail, with bruises fading along her arms. The confident, radiant woman who once walked out of our home with her head high was gone. In her place was someone broken, someone desperate. When she saw me, her eyes widened and tears immediately filled them. "Mark," she whispered, her voice hoarse. I froze. For months, I had dreamed of this moment, of what I would say if I ever saw her again. But now, words failed me. I just stood there, arms crossed, staring at the woman who had destroyed my life. She reached out a trembling hand, but I didn't move closer. "You came?" she said through sobs. "Yes," I replied coldly. "I came. Don't ask me why." Her lips quivered as more tears rolled down her cheeks. "Daniel left me," she confessed. He was never who I thought he was. He treated me like garbage. When I got hurt, he abandoned me. He said he didn't owe me anything." I felt no sympathy. Instead, I felt the bitter taste of irony. "Isn't that what you did to me?" I asked. She flinched as if I had struck her. "Mark, please. I made a mistake. I should never have left you. You were a good husband, a good man. I see that now." Her words might have meant something months ago, but now they were too little too late. I shook my head slowly. "You didn't just leave me. You abandoned our children. Rachel and David haven't heard from you in almost a year. You cut them out of your life like they were strangers. Do you think they'll forgive you just because Daniel tossed you aside?" Her sobs grew louder. "I was blinded, Mark. I thought he loved me. I thought I deserved more. I see now that I was wrong. Please, Mark, give me another chance." I let out a long, bitter laugh. It wasn't funny, but the absurdity of it all was overwhelming. "You want another chance?" I said, leaning closer. "I begged you to stay. I begged you to remember the life we built. And you looked me in the eyes and told me you were in love with another man. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" She covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "I was a fool," she cried. "I thought he would take care of me. I thought I was trading up. But all I did was destroy everything. Please, Mark, I need you." Her words hung in the sterile air. For a moment, I almost felt the old pull of compassion. But then I remembered the nights of loneliness, the broken pieces of myself I had to stitch back together. I remembered Rachel's tears, David's anger,
the humiliation of collapsing in my driveway while she drove off with another man. And just like that, the softness inside me hardened again. I leaned back and shook my head. No, you need help, not me. Her eyes widened in panic. Please, don't leave me like this, she begged. I have no one. No money, no home, nothing. You're all I have left. I reached into my wallet and pulled out a small wad of cash. I placed it on the nightstand beside her bed. That's for food, for whatever you need until you figure things out. But don't mistake this for reconciliation. We're done, Laura. We've been done since the day you chose him. She tried to grab my hand, but I stepped back. You made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. Her sobs echoed in the room as I turned and walked toward the door. Every step I took felt lighter, as though chains were breaking from my body. For the first time in almost a year, I felt free. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Outside, the California sun was shining. I stood in the parking lot, inhaling deeply, feeling the warmth on my skin. I realized something important in that moment. Love isn't about blind loyalty to someone who throws you away. Love is about respect, about trust, about choosing each other every single day. And once that trust is gone, there's no going back. I rented a car and drove away from the hospital, leaving Laura to face the consequences of her choices. The road stretched ahead of me, endless and open. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I wasn't defined by her betrayal anymore. I was free to start again, on my own terms. And that was enough. So now I'll ask you, the one watching this, what would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have forgiven Laura? Taken her back after all the pain? Or would you have walked away like I did, leaving the past behind for good? Tell me in the comments, because in the end, maybe the real question isn't what Laura deserved, but what any of us truly deserve in love.